Hello there. So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Today we're going to be ranking every episode of Red Dwarf ever made. This is a bit of an unusual video for me. So a few weeks ago I decided to make David Lister's beer milkshake. And I said in that video that there was a video of me ranking all the episodes of Red Dwarf. And then I never got round to making it because I suddenly had to go back to work and I've been extremely busy. So I'm doing that now while I have sort of a spare second. So this is that video. So if anyone subscribed to the channel in the last few weeks and they're just like, what the hell is this? This is very unusual. It's more just that I promised I'd do something and I want to make good on that promise. So if you've clicked on this and you're just like, this is totally different from normal, what's going on here? It is totally different from normal, and if you don't want to watch it, I totally get that and respect it. Normal service will resume. But we're going to do this. So this is Tier Maker. I've used it for a couple of videos before, ranking whiskies and fun things like that. And at some point, I'm going to be ranking some gin on it as well. But for now, we are doing all the episodes of Red Dwarf, and that does include the most recent special, which I actually quite liked. Spoilers. We should do some housekeeping before we kick off properly. So let's just grab that and grab, where is it? That. Now, why have I done that? That's a very unusual thing to start off with, John. Now then, there are some rules when it comes to ranking Red Dwarf episodes, and anyone that has seen a fan poll of like the best to the worst will see exactly what I did just then and will probably be laughing and clapping. With very rare exceptions, on pretty much any ranking or poll or anything that you care to mention of which is the best and which is the worst Red Dwarf episodes, Back to Reality always wins as best, and Pete Part 2 always comes out as the worst. They're constants, like day and night, like... No, that'll do, actually. I think that's all the example I need. If a fan site or UK Gold or whoever ever went, oh, we're going to rank all the episodes, you're not going to tune into that to find out which is the best and which is the worst, because it will always be these two. You find out how the ones in the middle did, where they landed this time. Usually, Marooned is at the top, pretty much, second or third as well. And most of Series 7 onwards is usually languishing at the bottom because everyone gave up after Series 6. Which is a shame. I quite like some of the new series, so if there's any new series fans here, you're going to be pleasantly surprised. But we're going to begin now, as we should, with the end. No, I'm not going back to front. It's the episode of the... If I'd said at the beginning, then I could have done the Series 10 finale and been... You're hating me right now, aren't you? I totally get that. That's fine. So, the end. Bit of a clumsy episode. Most pilots tend not to nail it. There's some good stuff, but overall it's setting up the premise, it doesn't bring the funny, and also it suffers from Series 1 and 2 Ocean Grey. Yeah, it's fine. It's not great. Future Echoes, on the other hand, this is episode 2 of the first series, and my God, did they bring... I love Future Echoes. Future Echoes is such a strong episode. I think they wrote it as like the 6th or 7th episode that they had, and you can totally tell that they just hit their stride, you know? It's the most confident entry in Series 1. Is that a spoiler that no other episode of Series 1 is going to get an A? Not really. If anyone's watched Series 1, I think most people would tend to agree that Series 1 kind of stumbled a little bit. It didn't do great things. So we've got Balance of Power. This is the episode where Lister tries to become a chef because then he'll outrank Rimmer. It's an interesting concept. It's a nice idea, and it establishes this weird dynamic. Well, the power dynamic, really, between the two. It's not the most engaging episode on the planet. Is it the one with the Quagars? I can't even really remember if it's the one with the Quagars or not. I don't think it's the one with the Quagars. I think that's the... No, that's Waiting for God, the one with the Quagars. The fact that I can't even remember which one it is, I think, says a lot. So it's going to get a C. It's watchable. It's fine. It has a clear direction, and it follows it all the way through, and there's some good gags in there as well. Waiting for God. I think I'm safe in saying the only cat episode of the original series. Cat is one of those characters where they just don't know what the fuck to do with him, you know? They wrote him as a cute idea. Well, not even a cute idea, you know, quite a good idea. And then just had no fucking idea what to do with him. It doesn't get an F. Purely because I like the slightly ham-fisted theological bullshit that goes on in it. You know, the whole talkie toaster thing of, you know, oh, they're using religion to be really crappy to each other, so what else is new, you know? Plus, there is something about the design of the cat priest that I really like, and it's the fact that one of his hands is white and one of his hands is black. And it's not a racial statement, it's the fact that cats have different coloured fur. And so it translates to their skin. And it's a really nice little feature that they just never used yet. To be fair, we've only ever met the cats, other than Cat, twice in 30 odd years. So that's not saying much, but it gets a D. Now then, Confidence and Paranoia. Again, quite a strong sci-fi premise. It's got a lot going for it. I don't think I'd ever choose to watch it. It's very 80s sci-fi, you know. Again, Series 1 just suffers from greyness, really. And we've got Me Too, and that's going to go here as well. I don't overall like Series 1 too much. It's not really one that I'd go back to. Future Echoes feels like a Series 2 episode that happened to come into Series 1, and that's kind of because it sort of is. Because it came right at the end, and then they just went, right, this is the best thing we've got, and the first episode wasn't great, so let's just make this our poster boy, and people will stick with the series with a bit of luck. And it worked. Excuse me. Did I mention I'm working a lot at the minute? So, Crichton. A Series 2 classic. I love this episode. I really properly love this episode. Yeah, it's going up. It's going up to the top, lads. Sue me. Doesn't perform too well in sort of fan polls. It always comes in like the higher quartile, but it tends to languish, and I get that. The design of Crichton is very primordial. It's not quite right. Obviously, they thought he was going to be a one-off character because they didn't want to write robots, and he ended up being a really popular character. David Ross does a fucking fantastic job as Crichton. And the whole... You get to see all of the well, you don't get to see the cat. Actually, no, you kind of do get to see the cat a little bit through, you know... You get to see their best and worst attributes, and you get to see a lot of the characters as a through a lens with Crichton. So you get to see sort of... Lister's sort of beatnik, devil-may-care kind of thumbing authority kind of thing coming through with Crichton. You get to see the snobbish, priggish, Tory power bullshit with Rimmer, and you get some nice lines with Cat just being like, hey, I ain't going to be a servant, fuck you. And David Ross sells it really well. Also, I will never not laugh at a skeleton falling headfirst into a bowl of soup. That stuff, it's the stuff that dreams are made of. Now then, Better Than Life. I feel torn by this one, because again, it's an episode I really like the premise of. I think it's such a cool... This is long before AR, you know? It's kind of scary how much they nailed the design, you know? Yeah, they're bike helmets with, like, stupid little balls on them, but, I mean, VR headsets don't look that much different, really, you know? It is genuinely scary. And even later on in the series, where it got even closer to how a VR headset actually looks, long before they were adapted, it's It's crazy. We talk about, like, technology of Star Trek becoming real. We should talk about Red Dwarf tech becoming real more often, because damn, they kind of nailed it on a few things. It's a B. Really strong concept. I love the holographic news anchor for Groovy Channel 27. I love those ridiculous 80s, 90s touches, like VHS tapes, but they're triangular, just dumb stuff where, they knew that they were going to be obsolete by the time, now. And there's even a gag in Back to Earth, where they talk about DVDs and they talk about them being replaced with what we have today. And Listen says, what videos? Because it's like, do you know what? Own your canon, This has been established. Just own it. Looking at you, Star Trek Discovery. Moving on, thanks for the memory. Really nice idea. Based around the idea of a really nice idea. And I love the... Whoopsie daisy. I love the... it's going there anyway. But I love the mystery element to it, and I love that they try to use the sci-fi concept to do something different. I just don't like the kind of, like, oh, you were doing my girlfriend at the same time thing, and I also just don't think that it plays with the concept too well. It spends a long time setting it up, and then Rimmer suddenly has this romance, and then it's all over before it's really had a chance to really kick off properly. So, yeah, underdeveloped, I think, is a nice one for that one. Now, I'm going to get into trouble with this one. I hate this one. I think Stasis is a terrible episode, because I just don't know where it fits in canon. Now, they had no idea that this series would still be getting made 30-odd years later. Of course they fucking didn't. This was a BBC sitcom in the 80s. It might do well, it might get a few series out of it. They might make a few quid and then move on to something else. Never expecting it to be the juggernaut that it is. Sci-fi is always quite easy for getting people on board. I don't like Stasis League. I don't think any of the jokes really land. I don't like the whole kind of, like, there's like the hotel thing, and I'm very confused about where it sits, what is going on. It gets together with Kachansky, and it's all just kind of blown up, and I just like to pretend, I prefer to pretend that it never happened. Because Craig Charles, I should say, don't call him by his real name, not the character he plays. Craig Charles does some really good work in this one. He really sells the frustration and just the anger at him discovering the love of his life is married to someone else and his entire plan crumbling. I love that scene where he's just kind of like bearing his all. And Danny Don-Jules has a rare moment where he's just stood there and he's just letting him act. I really like that. But it's like 30 seconds in an episode that I otherwise just meh. The guy in the shower had a really nice arse, but they're like the two top notes for me. Whereas Queeg, fantastic idea. The idea of like a backup computer that's a total prick. It's just channeling all the cunty managers that I have worked with in my time, and I've worked with a fair fucking few at this point, where they get off on being a dick to you. It's not top tier, but it's a stronger kind of middle, if that makes sense. It's a strong entry, the writing's great, the jokes are great. We get a focus on Norman Lovett, and the rest of the characters are sort of secondary to the plot, which is a lovely turnaround. I mean, Kat's always secondary to the plot, the day he's the fucking focus, good God. And then Parallel Universe, again, this is a bit of a weird one, because it's one of these kind of like, it ends on, excuse me again, it ends on a point that doesn't come to anything. I know it kind of does, but it also kind of doesn't, because they sort of do a soft reset in Series 3. Yeah, it's sort of on the same lines as Thanks to the Memory and Balance of Power, in that, like, it's fine, I dig the writing, I like what they were going with, and I like that we get Hattie Hayridge in it. My favourite line in it is, I think he's going to be in for a bit of a shock. His counterpart's not female, it's a dog. That's a lovely flip. How the fuck you smuggle a dog on board? I mean, no wonder she went into stasis, but Christ. The whole reverse pregnancy thing, I mean, it's obvious where that's going to go. But yeah, it's fine. You know, I've got no issues with it. Series 3, we went from grey to beige. It's an upgrade. The sets do look a lot better. They're better lit, they're just more dynamic, and there's these like weird flashes of purple. Again, it was like an 80s, 90s thing where you just got this weird bluish purple cast on a lot of the lighting. I have no idea if it was deliberate or not, or if it was just like a thing that happened in the camera. But anyway, backwards. The opening monologue. That's not a monologue, opening dialogue. You've got a bunk scene, and it's Lister and Cat, which is something we don't really get to see very often. In fact, I don't think we've really seen it up to this point. And they're talking about if they think Wilma Flintstone is sexy. And it's just fucking brilliant dialogue. The episode does technically open with a Star Wars crawl kind of like explaining away the last couple of series. Holly's now a woman. I want to quickly say as well, if Norman Lovett had never left Red Dwarf, and he decided to leave now, and the next series they cast a woman, there'd be uproar. There was nothing at the time. It was just like, yeah, the computer's a woman now. Probably shouldn't make a social commentary on this, but have we gone backwards? It feels kind of like we've gone a little bit backwards on that one. That's... But anyway, appropriately enough, backwards. It's a clever episode. For just pure technical brilliance, like that must have been a bastard to direct. Because you've got to be like playing everything back to front in your mind whilst you're playing it forwards to the actors. That must have been a bastard. Just on a technical level, it deserves to be here. I don't think... I prefer Future Echoes over Backwards as a story, but as a concept... Whoa, it's a classic. Marooned, I'm going to get into trouble with this one. I don't like it that much. Yeah. People adore this episode. They fucking adore this episode. I will quickly say, it is, objectively speaking, a great episode. The jokes are great. The setting is fantastic, having, like, you know, the two of them stuck together so they can just talk to each other and they're just, you know, bouncing off of each other and nothing else is really happening. I don't like the setting. And that sounds dumb. I don't mean like the ice planet. There's something about how rigid it is that I don't enjoy. Yeah. I'm weird. I like something to be happening, even if it's just kind of like, you know, moving from one room to the other. Now, I know that we start with a bit of action and then it becomes still, and the whole point of it is that they're marooned and people adore it. You know, it is a cracking episode. People absolutely adore this episode. I don't think I'd ever choose to watch it. And I don't really know why. It's just, I just don't like it very much. Personal opinion. People are going to be saying I'm wrong. Fair. I know that's coming. But, hey. Polymorph, meanwhile, it's definitely on par with Queeg. Great idea. An emotional vampire, essentially, sucking your emotions out of you. Great idea. What's not to love? The effects are a little bit ropey, but you know what? They're not as bad as they could be. And I love the whole kind of like alien parody. I love that they're playing up the idea that it's a horror. They do actually go much stronger into the horror territory later on in the next few series, but this was kind of like the episode that started that idea of kind of like, you know, can we do scary on this ship? And the answer is, yeah, we can kind of do scary on this ship. Great lines, great jokes. I love the weird characterizations that you end up with. It's brilliant. Body Swap's a weird one. Yeah, I'm going to put it here as well. Body Swap's a weird one. Yeah, it's alright. it totally plays in again to the whole putting a magnifying glass to Rimmer and Lister. You don't have as much focus on the two of them, obviously. You don't get to learn, how they lost their virginity and all those, fun little lines. But I don't know. There's something a little bit muddy about it. I just don't really dig it as an episode. I just don't think there's too much happening in it that's warranting of. Most people now would say, "Oh, it's amazing." I'm not too badly affected by nostalgia that I will just go, "Oh, it's a series 3 episode, therefore it all goes up here." I like to try and be a bit objective about these, and there are episodes that I prefer over it. So, Time Slides is another funny one. Again, really interesting concept, but your head just starts hurting the more you think about it. Obviously, it's nonsense. It's never going to work, and it also disobeys its own rules, which is a bit of a piss take, because they first can't move outside the edge of the frame, and then that changes into it's just a time machine, and they just walk through the scene, and then they're just there. Yeah, so not great. I see what they were doing with it. I see what they wanted to do. It just got lost. The Last Day, the Crichton episode, where you get the Hudson as well. I like this slightly more than the other entries. Series 3 for me is a bit of a mixed bag, isn't it? It's a middling series for me. The production values definitely went up. They benefit from Crichton being on board. Holly now has much less to do, which is a shame because it coincided with Hattie Hayridge coming on board. And I just can't help but feel like Rob Grant and Doug Naylor just didn't know how to write for Hattie, in the same way that they knew. You can tell that they loved writing for Norman because they just gave him some fantastic stuff. And as soon as Hattie came on board, it's like they just kind of went, "It's a girl. We don't know how to like work girls," and they just had her in the background, just kind of doing not much, which is shit. Camille, a lovely little parody episode. I quite like this one. It's cute. It's ridiculous. Crichton goes on a date with a fucking snot monster. It's insane. I love the Casablanca aspects. I love that Lister is trying to teach Crichton how to be a dick, basically. I love that he tutors him in how to be human, and the way to be human is just to be a prick to people. I love that. I love that Crichton's got a bit more independence in this episode as well. In Series 3, he was a mopey, just kind of like, woo, didn't really know what he was doing or where he was, kind of a thing. So yeah, I like it. That's everything I have to say. I like sort of the pastiches and the parodies and the parrots. DNA, another parody episode. I'm fine with that. So the crux of this one really is Crichton becomes human, and he has to figure out how to be human. And he ends up with some very interesting wardrobe issues. There's some great jokes about like double Polaroids and stuff like that. It took me when I first watched that I was a kid and I didn't know what erections were. I've since learnt. Yeah, it's a good episode. I like it. Justice. I really love the concept of this one. I think it's got a really strong premise behind it. Space Mumps is great. I love that. I love the idea that Rimmer went on a camping holiday to the diesel decks and he took 2 of the fucking scutters, these robots that he hates. Crichton gets a bit more to do in this one. The justice field idea is brilliant. And the idea of Rimmer being put on trial because he murdered everyone is fantastic. And we get an introduction to the simulants, which are, again, there's this Terminator-esque thing going on. It's great. White Hole, love this episode. It's going here. Holly, as Hattie Hayridge, finally gets something to do. And as soon as they give her something to do, they switch her off for the entire fucking episode. Fucking bullshit, it really is. I like this episode. I like the revived Talkie Toaster. That's completely different from the old one. Oh man, I shouldn't have done this so late. It's nice to have David Ross and Robert Llewellyn in the same episode. That's always cute. And yeah, I like the Pool with Planets idea, and I like that it's pissing around with time, but to a much less full-on degree. And I like that it goes a bit situational. You know, it has quite a clear beginning, middle, and end to it. I'm slumping down as well, aren't I? I'm very tired. Yeah, great stuff. Really strong conceptual stuff. I enjoy it. Next, Dimension Jump. I hate Ace Rimmer. I said it. I hate Ace Rimmer. I fucking cannot stand that character. He's obnoxious. He's everything I hate in men. He's just... this whole thing of being a loud, obnoxious man, being charming, needs to get in the bin. I know it was the late 80s, early 90s, and, you know, this kind of, like, hyper-masculine, cock-slapping bullshit was all the rage, but fuck it. I'd probably like the episode a great deal more if Ace wasn't in it, but as it is, I hate Ace. And I would never choose to watch this episode. I hate Ace. Deal with it. Meltdown. This episode's kind of shit. It's a load of people in fancy dress running around a field in Manchester, I'm pretty sure. That's because it's exactly what it is. The concept is so underserved. Because it just looks shit. The Winnie the Pooh gag is great. And that's it. They even make a joke about like how shit it looks through that archive footage of like is it the kaijus? I think it might be. It's rubbish. I just don't like it at all. The best thing we get out of it is the introduction of the light bee, and that's the nicest thing I can say about it. So yeah, mixed bag on that one. Series 5. Hollow Ship. Excellent series opener. Rimmer goes on board a holographic ship and gets shagged. Because it's the polite thing to do. Fantastic gags in this one. Lister to Red Dwarf, all that kind of carry-on was fantastic. The introduction of the Hollow Whip, which we will see later on this series. And just the idea that there is a ship full of holograms that are even bigger egomaniacal cunts than Rimmer is just amazing. I don't have too much else to say about this. It's nice to see kind of like, you know, a holographic society and have that kind of aspect to it. Don't know what it means to be a class 1 hologram, but apparently it means they're shit, which makes sense. Yeah, probably the worst thing that came out of this episode was it introduced the holo padding, which would become a thing for the next 2 series, which just looked like a quilt and just didn't look good. A rare misfire by what's his name? Graham Holden? No. Oh, the costume designer. Oh, that's bad. Oh, I'm annoyed. I've forgotten that. Anyway, the Inquisitor. Oh, is it top tier? It's top tier. This is such a good concept. A semi-insane android that's appointed himself the god of time. He combs through history, seeking out its most worthless individuals, and they must justify themselves in front of themselves, and if they fail, they are expunged from time and replaced. It's a brilliant concept, and it's really well done, and the resolution is very clever, because you do actually have to like think about it a little bit, because there's a lot of like timey-wimey bullshit going on. This was long before Stephen Moffat got his claws all over sci-fi. It's excellent. The design of the Inquisitor is beautiful. That mask is haunting and just amazing. The writing in the episode is fantastic. I love the cat's little line of "I've given pleasure to the world because I have such a beautiful ass." It's so cat. It's wonderful. It's great. That was weird. Next we have Terraform. Bit of a weird one, this one. It's going in the same general... Is it going in the same general? Yeah, it's going in the same general realm as Hollow-Ship. I'll still watch it. I think it's probably the weakest episode of Series 5, because Series 5 was a fucking belter. Really high concept stuff in Series 5, just overall. It's usually, I think, considered sort of the peak of Red Dwarf, and easy to see why, really. They were just on fire, this series. They really were on fire. Terraform's a weird one. Landing on a Psi moon, and it takes on Rimmer's psyche. I call bullshit on the whole he has physical form thing. They obviously just needed to write a way to put him into peril. But yeah, it's weird as well that he doesn't comment on that fact that he has a physical form, and he's not really twigged that something's going on. Because he gets oiled at one point, and he doesn't go, "Hang on, I'm being oiled. What's going on here?" He just goes, "Yeah, this is normal." I mean, I love the fact that Chris Barry was like, "Oh, I need to take my shirt off. I'm going down the fucking gym." Yes, Mo, I know. The cat has entered the room. Hello. What's wrong? You planning on interrupting my recording like a dick? Okay, we'll just try and do it quietly. Yeah, Terraform's a weird one. The resolution's a bit cringy. It's okay, you know? It's as bad as an excellent series gets. Quarantine goes up here. It's fantastic. There are so many excellent parts to this episode, I would struggle to name them all. But Mr. Flibble is definitely one of them. The dress is another one. The line, "So let me get this straight. You want to fly on a magic carpet to go see the king of the potato people and plead with him for your freedom, and you're telling me you're completely sane." The build-up on that joke is amazing. The payoff is fantastic, and the look of confusion on everyone's face as they're just kind of like, "Wait, what just happened?" The luck virus and sexual magnetism virus idea are amazing. Dr. Hildegard Landstrom being a rabid, laser-eyed bitch is amazing. And the time in quarantine itself, where they spend, I think, 5 days eating nothing but sprouts with, like, bare bones amenities that don't really do anything, and they just start kicking the shit out of each other. Done off screen, obviously, because, you know, you've got to try and bring it in as a PG or a 12, I think is what Red Dwarf goes for now. But yeah. And like, seeing, I think, is this the first time we've seen Crichton angry? Because we get it later on with like Kachansky and all that rubbish, but I think this is the first time that we saw Crichton get pissed off. I mean, he, you know, in Crichton, he had his rebellious side and he told Rimmer to fuck off, but that's understandable. This is the first time we see him, like, you know, aggro. And it is out of character, but it works. I don't know why it works, but it works. Holly has fuck all to do in this. Again, they just forgot Holly existed. Because, I mean, the quickest and easiest way out of quarantine would have been, "Hey, Holly, he's gone nuts, let us out." But, yeah. Demons and Angels is going up here as well. I love this episode so fucking much. The idea of splitting the ship into sort of a graceful heavenly one and a cursed hellish one is amazing. We did a lot of psychology stuff in this series, and it so fucking works. It really does work. Yeah, psychology and morality, they're kind of like the through themes, I think, of this one. Oh god. The low rimmer. That reveal, man, is incredible. And you can tell as they were writing, they were just like, we're going to make Chris Barry look as fucking ridiculous as humanly possible. And I think, as well, the reaction of just sheer shock. It's not like a goofy, oh my god. It's a fuck when he sees him. And there's some scary moments as well, like Crichton punches through walls and stuff like that, you know? It's great. The humour's maybe a little thin on the ground. The jokes aren't every other minute. And I can totally see why some people wouldn't like this episode too much, because it's not belly laugh funny. But in terms of just like raw concept, I love it. I really do. Again, there's going to be people that's like, you've put Demons and Angels over Marooned. You don't understand this show. Fuck you. That's all I'm going to say on that one. Just fuck you. Series 6, we have lost Red Dwarf. Sirens. This is, again, another soft reboot. Red Dwarf's gone, and now they've got the chase for Red Dwarf. I think they got a taste for sort of the adventure-y stuff that they were doing, and they wanted to be able to do that more. Ultimately, most of the adventure-y stuff that they do, they could have done with Red Dwarf, so what's the trade-off? Yeah, the setting's more interesting. Starbug has gotten bigger, because obviously before it was just a little auxiliary craft, and now it's got like fairly plush-looking bedrooms and stuff, you know? It's got this little galley thing with its evil water in it. Yeah, it's a good-looking set. Obviously, they've had to like ram 2 more stations in there, which don't really serve a purpose, just so they can get the entire cast into one set. Oh, how do I feel about Sirens? It covers a lot, but because it has to cover a lot, the story almost plays second fiddle to setting up what the series is about. As an introduction to the series, it does way better than the end. So it goes here. It's a well done episode. Pete Trance's sister is, I mean, they went as horny as they could for the time slot they were in. And I can see they just narrowly got away with it. Some people are going to be a bit weirded out that I just did that. Legion. I'm going to straight up say now, the costume design for Legion is shit. Doesn't look good. It's again this 90s Star Trek The Next Generation lycra morph suit bullshit, isn't it? Skin-tight lycra only looks good on Tom Daly, and that's because he doesn't wear much of it to begin with. Science fiction, can you stop putting people in skin-tight lycra? Stop it. Doesn't work. I like the weird kind of like floating art gallery setting of this one. I like the idea of a Gestalt entity. I like that Rimmer becomes physical just in time to get a load of food thrown at him. This episode is surreal and goofy and dumb, and it just makes me feel good. It's my comfort. Out of all of Red Dwarf, it's the one I go to if I'm feeling ill or I just need cheering up, because it's just nonsense and it's escapism at its height. Now then, it's helped a lot by the fact that CGI could not make a convincing face for Legion. Had they done it now, it would probably be something out of your freshest nightmare. But because it's not, it's this weird like glitchy quarter thing and it doesn't quite work. But I like the idea of it. Yeah, and just the whole kind of like trying to knock out Rimmer with a vase and shit like that. It's great. Gone with the Apocalypse is fantastic. Oh yeah, it goes up there. It's great. I'm not big into westerns, and even I like this. The AI setting, the battle against the simulants, the fact the simulant Starcraft is a cow skull, essentially. The Riviera Kid. What's not to love about that one? Yeah, and just for about 20 minutes, you're plucked into a completely different world. It's great. And then we have Polymorph 2. It's definitely not as good as the original. I don't mind the character of Dwayne Dibley. I don't think it deserved the push it got. And we have our old enemy Ace Rimmer in here again. He's not as obnoxious this time around. He's got a bit more charisma to him. He's not just, I've got a massive penis. Yeah, he's not the real Ace Rimmer. He's, this courageous Rimmer archetype. I know, I'm splitting hairs big here. It is, however, a weak rehash of an episode. Polymorph worked because it was a spin on Aliens. Polymorph 2 doesn't work because it's a spin on Polymorph, which is a spin on something else. Trying to retread old ground never works. And yeah, people keep trying. I've done it myself when I'm making videos, I've gone, oh, that did really well, let's just do that again. It doesn't work twice, because whatever made the original good is probably unique to that one episode. But we're never going to learn, because, we crave attention. Rimmerworld. Did not like this one at all. What is this episode? It's over before it begins. There's loads of random set pieces, and there's nothing really happens. Like, did I miss something? I don't think I missed anything. They go back to a ship that they fought a few weeks ago, which, for all intents and purposes, they blew up in that episode. To board it for supplies. Rimmer has started having panic attacks out of nowhere. And then he takes an escape pod, and then he gets teleported billions of years away. And then things get really weird. He manages to make a clone of himself, despite the fact that he's a hologram, and he wouldn't have taken anything like, of himself. I think what they were trying to go for was, it's kind of like a Lego kit and he fucked up. But that's not clear, or at least it's not clear to me. And also, just the concept, it doesn't go anywhere. It's just nothing how. You just 25 minutes go by and you're just there like, so what was the point of that? Oh, it's going down here. Fuck it, it's going down here. It's rubbish. Out of Time. Now this is an interesting one. As loads goes on, it is one of these weird peeking into the future ones. I like the fact that in the future Rimmer wears yellow because they've ran out of colours. Is it as good as Sirens? Is it as good as Hollership? Yeah, it's about in this bracket. I'm going to run out of space in B fairly soon, aren't I? It's fine. It's okay, yeah. I like that we get kind of like these weird Nazi-loving versions of the crew. That came out weird. The brain reveal is great. The stupid mustache on Crichton. Cat again does fucking nothing. And the fact that we've got this big old battle at the end and it looks like everyone's dead. And then cliffhanger for a few years, and then we come back with Ticket to Ride. I will say now, Series 7 looks stunning. It still looks stunning to this day. They made that series look fucking brilliant. But, there's a big but here, none of the episodes are all that good. Tika's Ride is a bit of a convoluted mess. I get what they wanted to do with it. Doug Naylor, at this point, is writing Red Dwarf on his own, and up until recently, I think he's had big old aspirations to make a movie. Because for years and years and years, he just kept going on about, I want to make a Red Dwarf movie, I want to make a Red Dwarf movie. And when you get obsessed with something, somebody just needs to smack you and go, fucking stop. Nobody did with him. So he kept chasing this idea of making a Red Dwarf film, or making like a filmic version of Red Dwarf. And in the process, it lost all that charm. This is going to be a thing that is going to carry on up until about 2012. And we're currently in 1997 here, so buckle in. Tika's Ride's fine. I kind of like the weird twist that JK kills himself. JK? No. What? John F. Kennedy? Holy shit, I just called him JK, didn't I? JFK, not fucking JK Rowling. John F. Kennedy. Fucking hell, John. Wow, I'm more tired than I thought. Okay, Tika's Ride's not great. I'm going to kind of belt through these a little bit because I don't think many people really care about 7 or 8. Stoke Me a Clipper, don't really care for it because, again, Ace Rimmer. Ouroboros, that's a mess. Duck Soup, I actually kind of like it. I do. It is... It's odd. We've got Kachansky in this one. Obviously, because I skipped over Ouroboros pretty much because it's a convoluted fucking mess from start to finish, and there's not really much else you need to know about it. A Duck Soup gives us an opportunity to kind of like meet Kachansky a bit better. Duck Soup gives us an opportunity to meet Kachansky properly. And they really throw her in at the deep end, you know. She's a character that is not enjoying where she is. And it gives a totally different dynamic having a woman on board. The problem with that dynamic is it makes everyone a prick. Crichton becomes an absolute jealous knobhead, which is the worst way that his character could have possibly gone. Lister becomes this fawning creep, and the cat's just the cat. The cat doesn't change because, again, the cat's just this background character that never went away. Yeah. But I like that they all spend a bit of time together, and even the cat gets something to do in this one. Lister's claustrophobia is a bit weird, isn't it? They even reference that fact in the episode itself, the fact that, well, why are we only hearing about this now? And the answer is, of course, because it's been clumsily written in at the last minute. But that's not what we say in the real world, is it, kids? No. Yeah, it's an odd one, this one. But I don't know, I like the setting of this one. And it's weird, because in many respects, this is just marooned worse. I totally get that. For some reason, I just prefer this incarnation. I don't know why. I'm weird. I'm weird like that. Blue is an unusual one. Again, it's trying to deal with kind of like psychological stuff. Get one of the... it's definitely not one of the first gay kisses on TV. Rimmer and Lester snog each other in a dream. You know, bit of gay baiting in there, really, more than anything else. The Munchkin song's great. Weird, but great. And it's nice that, you know, we actually have some continuation to the fact that Rimmer's no longer there. And our answer to Rimmer no longer being there is to have Rimmer there, basically, for all intents and purposes. Chris Barry is in this episode. Beyond a Joke. This is an episode written by Robert Llewellyn, and I quite like it. I know. Again, it's a bit of a garbled mess. But I there is a bit of nostalgia that comes into this one. I know I said earlier that I'm not affected by nostalgia, and this is sort of the exception to that rule. I remember this episode being repeated a lot, and I just kind of remembered it being my introduction to Crichton. Now, I know this is not a good introduction to Crichton. I'm well aware that this is not the best version of his character I could have seen, but at the same time, the idea of a domestic robot driving a tank up to a load of Jane Austen characters and blowing them the mother away is great. I love that scene. I love the backstory behind it, the fact that they had bits of gazebo flying through people's windows 100 fucking miles away and stuff like that. I also just love the image of Crichton's head exploding. I can't explain why I like that. There's again a bit of like a psychological thing in it, in kind of like the discovery of what Crichton's lineage is, essentially, and we get to see another, not Crichton, he's called Abel, but another Series 4000 who could have, like, you know, but for the grace of God, this is what Crichton could have become. It is not readily explained why his head sort of stopped exploding. Maybe he just needed to calm down. Although I think they sort of kind of touched on the idea that it's a nega drive drain or something like that. There's lots of lore in this one. I actually quite like how it's put together, just as an episode overall. And I think it's a neat little introduction to this weird dynamic that they've got at the minute with Kochanski. I get that loads of people to hate it just because of Kochanski or the fact that it's just a Series 7 episode. And I get that this is, the 6th episode of 8? So normally this would be right at the end of the series. So at this point we've had, an entire series of so I get why at this point people have probably just given up. But yeah, I don't mind this episode. I quite like it. Epideme, again, I've got quite fond memories of this one. I still to this day find Epideme creepy. I find the image creepy, that voice scares me. The whole concept of this sentient virus is terrifying. The line, "I've been molested by Tutankhamun's horny grandma," is fantastic. And conceptually, it's quite well done. There's kind of like a zombie thing going on, essentially, except instead of biting, it's a love bite, not an actual bite, And there are consequences to this episode. Rimmer gets his arm cut. Rimmer? Rimmer's not in this episode. Lister gets his arm cut off. And I like the fact that Kochanski gets a bit of a character moment where she's kind of like, hey, if I hadn't been here, he'd be fucked right now. Because think about it, if that was up to Rimmer to save the day, Lister's dead. So in this particular instance, Kochanski's really earned her stripes. And then we've got Nanaki. Weird episode, this one again. It's not bottom of the pile. It's close. It is close. But it's here. It's not offensively bad. It's just a bit naff. It's just a bit rubbish, There's not too much that happens. Norman Lovett's back. That's sort of, I think, the thing that everyone remembers from this episode, because there's not much that happens. And we'll leave it at that. And that is the close of Series 7. Then we go into Series 8. Porridge in Space. This is a weird one. Right, so this is where we get into the Doug Naylor wanting to write a film into overdrive situation, because we start with a 3-fucking-parter. Why does this need to be a 3-parter? It doesn't. So the premise, at the end of the last series, they found a load of nanites and it rebuilds Red Dwarf. And in this series, they've also rebuilt all the crew. So all the crew are back. And then because they nicked a Starbug, they end up in jail. And we know they're going to end up in jail because the opening scene is of them in jail. And then the rest of the 3-part story is getting to them being in jail. It's not very engaging. We get to play around with a lot of new characters. None of it's very good. I cannot remember what order this episode happens in. And it is one episode. So I'm going to lump it all together. This is never an episode I would choose to watch. Because it is just a mess. It is. It's a fucking... It's like he was just firing out ideas and then just decided to put them in an episode. It doesn't... It's not good. Cassandra is stronger. Creepy computer that sees the future. Ooh. Wonderfully played by, I was going to say Jermaine Greer then, by some actress who's now dead. That's the best I can do. Yeah. Again, weird episode. Really weird episode. I like it conceptually. I like the fact that we get Rimmer and Kachanski together, and I like that they are essentially told to shag each other through premonition. The episode's still not great. It's still all over the place. The canary stuff is good. The misunderstanding of what canary is, and also the fact that Holly is given more of a role, despite the fact that he's not even really making much of an appearance in this episode. The fact that he's given a role in just continually fucking with Lister to try and get him into more hijinks. Yeah. Crity TV, not a fan. I seem to remember liking this better as a kid, and then as I've gotten older, I've liked it less and less. The idea that Crichton thrives in prison is hilarious, but he's been reprogrammed. And it's not aged well, has it? You know, in regards to just issues of consent, and just generally the objectification of the female body. And I know that do you know what? I do have an opinion on this, and the opinion is that this is not good. Just on a lot of levels, but it's not good. Pete Part 1, So the Legend Goes. This was an episode originally called Captain's Holiday, and it is way better than Pete Part 2. Because it's Rimmer and Lister trying to get out of jail through good behaviour and continually fucking up. And Mac McDonald does a fantastic job of being the captain and just being a bit of a malicious prick. Only the Good. Again, it's a mess. How does this episode even start? I can't remember. Cesium Frankolithic Mixyalbidium Rixie Dixie Dexy Doxydroxide is probably the better part of this episode. Yeah. And Kneeing Death in the Ghoulies is great. We have never gotten a resolution to this episode because there isn't one. You